What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the Bianconeri Zone for another daily news show on a Sunday where we have actually a good update on Leoni because it's not dead in the water. We're still interested in Leoni, however, it's not going to help us next season because we are interested to bring him in on nothing basically. We're willing to pay the money to Parma, but Parma can keep him for a season, and there's a good reason behind why the club wants to do that. If that's realistic, probably not, considering other teams being in for him. That's what we're going to talk about. Also, Kolo Muani getting closer apparently because the club is a bit panicking and they're scared that they're going to lose out on Kolo Muani if they wait too long, but they can be helped because Milan are ready to push for Vlahovic and are not willing to wait, until the end of the transfer window. But if the club can sell Kolo Muani, Vlahovic, they can also sign Kolo Muani. That's basically the idea behind the entire story. So before we get into it, as always, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and put on the notification bells. Let's start off with Leoni really quickly before I go to the attacking dilemma at the club right now. Leoni. So Nico Schira came out and he made it very simple, saying that the club is still very interested in Leoni and are ready to make an offer because they know Milan and Inter are interested. Inter extremely interested, and are really not willing to pay the close to 40 million Parma one. I don't think he's worth 40 million right now. That, is also important to discuss, but they're willing to meet Parma's sort of demands, including players. Now, the club's idea, Juve's idea, Comoli's plan is to go to Parma and basically say, we will pay you, let's say Parma won 40 million euros. We will pay you 32. Well, you can keep him for another season and he will only join us next season. Now, on paper, that sounds fantastic. But the reality is, Parma want that money. And Parma can be sitting there being like, if Inter pay us 35 and they sign him now, then why would we pay except 3 million less? Yeah, we can keep him for one season, but we're losing out on money. This is not a deal that's about a couple of millions, peanuts. This is about a big money deal. So for Parma, keeping Leoni for another season is interesting, but it's not as interesting, in my opinion, compared to losing millions. A couple of millions for Parma, like a couple of millions is a lot for us in our situation. A couple of millions for Parma is a lot of money. 3, 4, 5 millions is a lot of money for a club like Parma, like extremely a lot of money. They basically pay the wages, half of their wage bill, or like 35% of their wage bill with that 5 million. So for them, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. For the club, it can sound interesting. You can keep the player and we'll pay you a fee right now and then we'll pay the rest maybe next season, whatever. But for Parma, they're losing out on money with knowing that, well, Inter want him, Milan want him. We can probably get that money if we sell him right now and we replace him, yeah, maybe with a lesser player, but still, we got more money. So on paper, it sounds good. Is that going to happen? I don't know. If that's the type of deal we want, it's not a deal that the club is going to waste time on right now, but that's a deal you close, in August if you try to close that deal to begin with. So that's the Leoni thing. So it's not over. It's actually quote unquote on. The thing that's also on is a striker position because it's very clear if you sign Leoni and you let him stay there on loan, you're not willing to invest in that backline. The club is happy with that backline. Wing backs, we will see right back, left back, but I'm talking about center backs. They're happy with Cabal back in training. They're happy with Bremer back in training. They're happy to keep Rugani. Maybe if Kelly gets an offer, fine, but they probably will sign a player like Senesi. One of those type of players from Bournemouth or whatever he plays. Those are the players they're going to sign. They're not going to sign a quality player. So now it's back to the attacking department because you're missing a striker. Vlahovic needs to leave and Kolo Muani needs to join. Now, Kolo Muani made it very clear. Reports out there, he said no to Manu. He wants to join Juve because he's happy at the club. He feels well at the club and he thinks at Juve, I can, reignite my career, which he kind of did after the first part of the season with PSG. He, revived his career. So he's like, I want to join Juve. However, he also told the club, I cannot wait until the last week of August because it's a World Cup year. I need to have some certainties. And that's why the report comes out today saying that the club, it's not really panicking, but, they need to do something because PSG is waiting because they expect a bit from the Premier League, paying money. But they know, well, Kolo Muani is going to reject those offers for now, because he wants to join us. So the club wants to act on it and say, you know what, we want another loan with an option. Maybe an obligation kicks in if we win something or whatever, but if an obligation kicks in, it needs to be lower than what we want to offer you for the option. So let's say the club is like, we will give you 10 million euros for the loan, for an option and an obligation. However, if it's an obligation, we only want to pay 35 for the obligation. If it's an option, we're willing to pay 40 million euros. That's kind of the report that the club is telling PSG. If you give us an option instead of an obligation, we're willing to pay you more for the option rather than the obligation. Now, will PSG accept that? Maybe at one point they're like, okay, man. The question is just, when will the club act on it? You know, will they act on it and all that? And will Milan say, you know what, we cannot wait on Vlahovic. Here you go, Juve, 20 million, that's what we want. Now, you know, they're not going to offer that because they know we want to get rid of Vlahovic, but maybe that can, you know, speed up negotiations when it comes to Vlahovic, and it opens up wages, opportunities, and all those things. But to be honest, we have too many players on the roster. I think we have like almost 30 players. And today there was a report saying, well, the club wouldn't be unhappy if Kostic and Rugani stays. I'm like, that's an issue. You have too many players. You need to get rid. They're out of contract. Cash in, even if it's a couple of millions, move these players out. Finally recoup some sort of money on these players. Rui still at the club. Kostic still at the club. Rugani still at the club. All these players are still at the club. Milik still at the club. All these players are at the club still. Players who have not been good enough in years, out on loan for obvious reasons, now back, and now they're suddenly good enough? No, they're not good enough. So we have a too big squad. Like, the squad is too big, but it's not good. Like, it's not a quality squad. And that's an issue because you cannot keep signing players when you have already 30 players in the squad. Arthur still at the team. Like, all these players are still at the club, and we will have these conversations every single season over and over again if we finally do not make that decision to get rid of these players. And it's holding up everything. Wea, you know, still at the club because the Comoli is telling Marseille, you didn't open talks for Balerdi, fine, but we wanted 50 from Nottingham. We want 20 million euros from Marseille. I have no issue with that. But you still need to get rid of Timothée Weah at the end of the day, you know, and I'm okay with